to welcome Jeremy to our great city. I have to be honest, nothing makes me prouder to be from Southampton and part of the Labour Party than looking at all of you today. All ages, all backgrounds, all religions and races, showing how amazing our city is and what the Labour movement has achieved. That despite coming from different walks of life, we are united in wanting to make society a better place. It's why I joined the Labour Party, because I wanted to change the world. We'll change the world. And in this recent election, it showed us that we've all got our part to play in that. It showed us that we are stronger together, and collectively, we proved May's arrogance and the polls wrong. Here in Southampton, we managed to increase our majority in Southampton test and come within just 31 votes in winning back Southampton, making it Labour's #1 target. I wanted to personally thank everyone here who voted and helped make that happen. But we need more from you moving forward, because if there was ever a time that we needed a Labour government, that time is now. This country is at breaking point. Where in places in Southampton, food banks and handouts from churches and temples have become the norm of people that are working but don't earn enough to feed their kids. Where Southampton schools are having to ask parents to clean their toilets because Tory cuts mean they're left with no other choice. It cannot be right that the people that teach our children, that nurse our parents when they're sick, that risk their lives to save our lives when our house is burning down, get a real terms pay cut when large corporations are getting tax breaks. We need to put an end to this Tory austerity, and the only way we're going to do this is by electing a Labour government. And that chance will come hopefully soon. And we have to be ready. So if you're not a Labour Party member yet, there's a lot of you here, if you're not a Labour Party member yet, become a member. If you're a Labour member but not active yet, please become active. And if you're already active, get more active. For the first time ever, we are handing over a world that is worse off to the next generation. I was born in Southampton's most deprived communities. I grew up on free school meals, and the only reason I am where I am today is because of a Labour government. So if you had a question whether it's worth it, I'm telling you now, it's worth it. A Labour council, like here in Southampton, can improve the lives of many, but only a Labour Party and a Labour government can truly bring lasting change. And it is my honour and privilege to finally introduce the person that will help us bring about that lasting change. The leader of the Labour Party, our next Prime Minister, Mr. Jeremy Corbyn.
shirts away. To all and sundry, it would be a good idea to have a replacement Saint shirt.
Thank you very much for that. The only problem's going to be what happens when the Saints come and play Arsenal. Yeah. This stuff has happened before. Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you for that wonderful welcome here today. And thank you, Alan, for all that you do on environment and so many other issues, because you do make an enormous difference in changing the terms of debate about sustainability. I congratulate you on the tremendous election result you got, and for all the work you do and have done and will do in Parliament to make people understand you can't go on destroying the planet without there being consequences. You have to have an environmental policy that is sustainable. And under a Labour government, we will, and Alan will be part of that policy. And I've got a present for you, Satvir. Nobody escapes here. I've got a copy of a well-known best-selling book, now on its third reprint. And it's called, you've never heard of it before, For the Many, Not the Few. And it says to Satvir, thank you for all you do, and here's to itching next time. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming out this morning. I'm visiting every single one of the marginal constituencies we've got to win to make sure there is a Labour government for the next general election. And this is a key one for us to win, and we're going to put all our efforts into it. After this, I'm going to Bournemouth, because I think we can change the face of the south coast of Britain by so we will be campaigning everywhere, all over this summer, and I'm going to at least 35 marginal constituencies between now and September. And I'm also going to be speaking tomorrow at the wonderful Tolpottle Martyrs rally in Dorset, which is, of course, a reminder of where our origins come from, the way that people, against impossible odds, suffered the most appalling privations because they believed in the rights of working people to join a trade union and organise together and be represented together. They suffered that unions could become strong and effective in the future. We should never ever forget those that went before us and the sacrifices they made, that we might build on those and bring great achievements like the National Health Service, like the principle of council housing, like all the other issues of social justice that we all believe so strongly in. And so understanding where we come from is very important if you understand where we're going to and what the process of history is about. I was very proud of the general election campaign that we fought. Very proud because of the numbers of people that became involved for the first time in politics, the numbers of people of all communities, all ethnic groups, all languages, all ages, gender differences, LGBT people, and so many more that all came together to support For the Many, Not the Few. And that, of course, what isn't going to change. The commentariat wrote us off. Those that are incredible expert observers of the political scene wrote us off. And you could watch any late night discussion programme that would be simply discussing the size that the Tory majority would be after the general election. But something happened and something changed and something was different. And essentially, it was our message in our manifesto, that we don't have to go on just being political managers and economic managers. We have to have an objective, an idea, an inspiration, a hope, of the kind of world and kind of society that we can live in. We don't have to tolerate the desperate levels of poverty that exist in every major city in Britain. We don't have to be food bank Britain. We don't have to say to all our young people, you want an education, pay for it. You want a degree, pay for it. Do you want to be in debt? Your choice. And then they lose out, and they lose out, and the next generation after them loses out. And then we point to the growing levels of inequality and injustice within our society. The way in which the rich have got so much richer over the past 7 years, and indeed before that, but particularly over the past 7 years, at the expense of the majority of the population. And so we put forward a credible manifesto that was transformational in what it would do to our country and our society, transformational in our view of the rest of the world, where we'd have a foreign international policy based on human rights, peace, democracy and environmental sustainability, and that we would do all this within a clearly costed programme. And John McDonnell and his team worked very hard to set out a costed programme. So we had a manifesto that made it very clear how we would support the National Health Service, how we'd support a National Care Service, how we would support a National Education Service, which industries, particularly rail, water and post, we believe should be in public ownership, public employment, and the way we would halt the privatisation in the National Health Service and the breaking up of our National Health Service. And so we put all those ideas together in for the many, not the few. And the cynics carried on analysing what they called the impossibility of our manifesto, knowing all the while what they were talking was complete nonsense, because they clearly hadn't even read it. And so I've sent copies to many people. I offer them to anyone. I take them with me wherever I go and say, if you have any doubts, read it and actually understand what it says. And I think you might learn something from it. And you know what? The election result was not the one I wanted. I wanted us to win with an overall majority in Parliament, and had we managed to do that, gained a few more marginal seats, there would now be a Labour government in Britain, and we'd be tackling these issues rather than walking by on the other side. And so, whilst I thank everyone for their support and their activity in the campaign, we've still got a bit more work to do. But we can take pride and heart from the fact that the Labour vote in this general election just gone went up by 3 million, the largest increase since the Second World War. And it was in every part of the country, and it was something that brought a lot of people into politics for the first time, particularly those more than 2 million people who registered to vote just before the deadline loomed, and there could be no more registrations were possible after that. Anyone who's still not registered, I urge them to make sure they're registered, because you don't know when the next election is coming. And so I am more than ready for the next election campaign. And so I've asked all of our shadow teams to take the manifesto, go through it, go through each policy commitment, each hope, each demand we're making, and put forward ideas for greater detail on how we carry that forward. But it's not just going to be done by MPs in Parliament. It's going to be done by all members of the party and all affiliates of the party and all the unions that have given us such incredible support in this election campaign, and I thank them for all of that. But it's also the contribution that everyone else can make. Because if we're to have an effective care service across the whole country, where 1 million people are not waiting for social care, where thousands are not stuck in hospital because there is no social care available for them, where so many women have to give up their work, and it's nearly always women who do, in order to care for somebody who is not cared for by the public, then we have to have a policy that works. The best experts on that are those carers and those in need of social care, and those campaigns, organisations, unions and local authorities that deliver the social care at the present time. I give that as an example. We all have a contribution to make. And you know what? When we go around the country having rallies like this and all the other meetings and organisations that we do within the party, it brings people together. And you know what? In bringing people together, that creativity of ideas is what's different about us to the Tory government. We're open to ideas, we're open to information, we want to include everybody in our work and our community. And that is the basis on which we get ready for the next election campaign. The Tories didn't win the election. Strong and stable isn't a word you hear very much coming from the Tory benches these days. And coalition of chaos, well, there is a coalition of chaos, and I look at it every day when I'm sitting on our benches in Parliament. But the deal they've done with the DUP is what? To spend £1 billion in Northern Ireland, and I do not begrudge the people of Northern Ireland public investment, public spending and good quality public services. None of us do. But I do think there has to be a sense of justice and equality about it. You spend £2 billion in Northern Ireland, then you also have to spend 50 billion in England, you have to spend money in Scotland and in Wales. If it was truly a government for the whole country, it would be investing across the whole country. We've made those points time and time again, and very strong indeed. Now, Theresa May seemed to have a problem about policies the other day, and so she made a public plea that she wanted policy ideas to come forward. So, at no expense was spared whatsoever, I wrote a message during the front of a copy of For the Many Not the Few, and it was hand-delivered to Downing Street so she could actually see it and read it. And so see what she thinks of it. Now, I realised that her problems had started before I sent a copy of the manifesto, so I wish I'd sent one earlier. I apologise for that, because within days of the opening of Parliament, they put forward their programme, and we put forward a very specific vote, a very specific amendment to the Queen's speech, and that was that the public sector pay cap be lifted. Because nurses, teachers, doctors, teaching assistants, council employees, so many people in so many services and parts of the country have had not just a 1% or in many cases no pay rise whatsoever for the past 7 years. In reality, they've had a pay cut. NHS workers are 14% worse off than they were 7 years ago. They had a chance, they had an opportunity that they could have voted for our amendment. They didn't. The DUP voted against it as well. And I hope public sector workers in Northern Ireland fully understand that their representatives voted to continue the pay cap and the impoverishment of NHS workers all across the country. So we will continue that challenge, and the news is that they're going to do the same towards the teachers on the teachers' pay review body. They did slightly change their tune on the firefighters' pay rise. They still haven't got an inflation level pay rise, but they slightly changed their position on it. And I think that's probably just a sense of shame, because, you know, Tory MPs line up, in fact they elbow each other out of the way to praise NHS workers, to praise firefighters, to praise paramedics, to praise anybody whenever there's a disaster anywhere in the country. We all do. But praise doesn't pay the bills. Those people deserve a proper pay rise, and they should get it. And so, think about this and think about the situation facing the country as a whole. We had the disasters of Manchester, we had the disaster at London Bridge, we had the disaster that happened in my own constituency when there was an attack on people leaving a mosque. Those horrible events and horrible attacks remind us of two things. One is the value and importance of all emergency workers who rush to the scene of the disaster in order to try and save life, whilst the rest of us are trying to get to a place of safety. They also remind us of the need and strength of communities coming together to support each other, whatever their race, whatever their religion, whatever their background. And I was very proud of the numbers that came out in Manchester only the day after that attack. And then we had Grenfell Tower, that towering inferno where poor people were burnt to death in Britain's richest borough. A fire that should never have occurred, a building that should not have been dangerous, people that should have been able to live in safety, and a local authority that seemed to be absent from the scene completely, and has since all of its leadership seemed to have resigned and gone away in shame at their inability to deal with the needs of the people they were elected to represent. But there's a lesson for all of us here. If you go through a process of cutting local authority budgets by 40%, if you go through a process of underfunding fire services, the NHS and everything else, you still have those wonderful dedicated people trying to save life and support communities, but you put all of us at risk by that kind of policy. Surely Grenfell has to be a wake-up call to us, a wake-up call to do something about the housing crisis that faces our people. And you can't leave the housing crisis and its solution solely to the market and the free market. And so our manifesto did and does and will address the housing crisis that the whole country faces. Those that are street sleeping, rough sleeping, homeless people, all have tales, all have stories, all have a backstory, all have lives. There are many, many reasons why people have got into all kinds of difficulties. And we support them, we have sympathy for them, but in reality, they're a symptom of a housing crisis. Is it really right that in the 21st century, in the 5th richest country in the world, people should be sleeping on the streets because there is a shortage of housing? What is wrong with our national policies that we have not invested enough in council housing, in security in the private sector, and in affordable homes for people to buy? Or is it right that there is so much luxury development happening, particularly in London and parts of the South East, that is then deliberately kept empty so that somebody can make money out of it, like putting money into a cash machine? Surely the priority has to be housing everybody properly first. Yeah. And it's quite interesting, when I made the point 3 or 4 days after Grenfell that some of the luxury empty properties in London should be used to house those people that have come out of Grenfell, I was condemned as being just about everything you've ever heard of, actually. 3 days later, the government had bought a whole lot of empty properties in order to house the people that had come out of Grenfell. You see what happens? You make a noise, you make a fuss, you make a demand. 3 days later they say, oh, I wish I'd thought of that myself, and they actually do it. All of us to make that noise and make those demands, and that is what we're going to do. But there is a wider issue, and that is the inequality that exists in modern Britain. Inequality that exists between regions, inequality that exists between people, and the way in which young people are often laden with the burden of debt, inadequate housing, and their career choices and life chances are damaged as a result of it. It's as if the economics of the free market that were first being espoused in the 1970s by right-wingers all across the USA and elsewhere have never quite gone away. Well, what we put forward in the election campaign was something very different, and something that has a resonance with young people all across the United States and all across Europe, that it doesn't have to be like this. We challenge the whole idea of austerity. We challenge the whole idea of trickle-down economics. Instead, we say the function and role of government is to invest in good quality services for everybody. And the government that intervenes in the economy in order to invest for the future and to develop good quality industries and jobs for the future. So part of our election offer was the National Investment Bank, which will, yes, improve infrastructure all over the country, but also invest in new industries, cutting-edge industries, sustainable jobs in a sustainable environment. The free market will not do it on its own. It will only happen if the public as a whole get behind it, get behind that investment, and give real opportunity and real hope to every part of the country, some areas of which former mining communities have seen no investment since the end of the miners' strike, and see insecure, low-paid jobs and an insecure future of not very much. It is up to us, the Labour Party, it's up to us, the Labour movement, to work with all of those communities to develop a strategy for the future that doesn't divide people, that instead unites people. And that is exactly what they're doing. Our offer and our ideas on education, we're going to be working on developing them still further, but essentially they go something like this. If you're poor and you live in a poor neighbourhood and you go to an underfunded school or you don't get a nursery place, then your life chances are damaged from the age of 2 or 3. If you go to a primary school that has supersized or oversized classes, you're less likely to do well in that school. If you're in a school where the head teacher is replaced 2 or 3 times a year, where your class teacher changes once or twice a term, you're less likely to do well in that school. You're less likely to come out of primary school in the educated state you ought to be. And you then move on to a secondary school where you will find yourself not entered into the exams you perhaps thought you were going to be because you weren't going to pass them, and you end up not achieving your ability and your potential in life. It is about how we treat our children and how we treat the next generation. And so I'm very determined to have a different attitude towards them. The first is preschool places for all children. All children learning to play together, socialise together, and to understand each other. In primary schools, every child coming into school gets to eat a good quality, free lunch every day. I was told this costs a lot of money, and some children whose parents could afford to pay the lunch will get the lunch. Absolutely true. The same thing could be said about the National Health Service, the same thing could be said about the Public Library Service, the same thing could be said about any public service. It's the principle. You have a universal delivery of a service and you tax accordingly to pay for that service. Education isn't just about academic learning. That is very, very important. And so I'm very interested in the creativity and ambition and ideas of children in lots of ways, unlocking that creativity. Anyone that goes to a primary school art exhibition, you're inspired by what they do, inspired by what they paint, the thought process that's going with it. Look at the poetry they're writing, listen to the music they're playing. And so I put forward the view, and it's strongly supported within all the teaching professions, that we will have a pupil arts premium under a Labour government so that every child can learn music. I was talking to a head teacher in my constituency yesterday in a school where the children are not wealthy at all. Indeed, it's probably one of the poorest schools in my borough in the sense of the income level of the parents, but it's a wonderful creative learning environment. And they've had music lessons for all children for quite a long time. And what they told me was, maths has improved, English has improved, achievements have improved, and the sense of the school has improved very much together as a result of that. And I'm very proud of what that school has achieved. But moving on through it, we seem to be going in the wrong direction. If we need engineers, if we need plumbers, if we need architects, if we need skilled people in our society, then you have to help them get that education. So introducing fees to go to college, increasing fees at university, at some point is either a deterrent to go there at all, or leads to a lot of people dropping out of those courses, and certainly leads to a massive level of debt after those courses have been completed. Yes, it costs money. Yes, it's going to cost a lot of money to do it, but I believe it is right to increase corporate taxation and the taxation for the very wealthiest in our society, that everyone will get the cost of your and so we will make sure that actually happens with the Labour government, because I want to live in a society that is educated, not a society that ignores the needs of so many people. Young people achieving is really what we all want. After all, they're the people that are going to look after us later on. So it's about generational empowerment, generational enrichment, generational sharing, rather than the idea of saying to young people, sorry, get ready to pay for your health care, get ready to pay for your education, get ready to pay for your own pension privately, because the public and community services will not be there. We do it differently. We believe in people, we believe in community, we believe in public service. We are now in a very strange period. A government without a majority when they thought they were going to have one, a government without a strategy when they claimed to have one, and a government that's casting around wondering what to do. At the same time, as people are suffering in increasing poverty, increasingly people in work relying on food banks, and greater levels of stress coming within society. So we are campaigning very hard all over the country for a general election. As soon as it comes, we're ready for it. September's fine by me, I'm free anytime. But I can't predict when it's going to happen, but we will keep on pressing this government, because we are not just the opposition, we're a government in waiting to take over. We went to Brussels on Thursday to meet the European Commission and to meet others, to make the point very clearly that we will ensure there is tariff-free trade access to the European market, that all European nationals will have absolute and total and permanent rights to remain in Britain, and that we will recognise the huge amount of work they've done, and that we will not threaten Europe with a tax haven on the shores of Europe. We'll work together as partners with the continent, because we're interdependent so much on jobs and manufacturing industry across the channel. So we open those discussions on Thursday, because we have to, as a party, be ready for what we want to achieve in this country and around the world. I'm proud of what we've done as a manifesto. I'm delighted that party membership is now 560,000 and continuing to rise. And I want all those who have joined our party to be their ideas. Because we're not just a political party, we're a social movement, we're a community of people that want to do things differently. I mentioned the Tall Puddle Martyrs and what they went through in the early part of the 19th century. You think of the Chartists in the mid-19th century and what they went through. You think of those people that had the vision of a world that could be done so differently. Those people around the world struggling under the yoke of human rights abuse and poverty in a world of plenty, and refugees dying in the seas because nobody cares about them. I'm not saying we can solve every problem everywhere in the world, but we can have a different approach and a different attitude. By investing in our own people, investing in our own economy, investing in the future of all, and recognising the human spirit that is there all over the world, and the levels of global injustice and global inequality are a problem for everybody, and obviously a disaster for those most affected. Our party was founded by people with enormous vision and founded to bring about social justice within our society. We have made enormous achievements. We talk the Human Rights Act, the Equalities Act, of Sure Start centres, we talk of the National Health Service, we talk of the housing strategies. A Labour government coming in the 21st century will build on the achievements of the past. We'll build on the achievements of the past, recognise the huge technical improvements that have taken place, recognise the changes in economic methods and so on that are happening all around, and make sure that you have a government that cares about all the people, that invests in all the people, that invests in the reality of social justice and opportunities for all in our society. We're united in wanting to achieve this.